Welcome to Truth, Money, and Freedom. Today is Monday, August 12th, 2019. Hey, gang. I thought I'd do something a little bit different today on the heels of our successful podcast last night talking about Epstein. I've talked about the economy quite a bit, and there's really no new big news in the economy and I'll let you know this, the inflation is starting to show up in the food markets as well as anything imported from China. While we expected this, we knew this was coming. It's actually becoming a reality now, and so that's the only really big news in the economy. I mean, silver and gold are up today. The markets are under pressure today. I mean, the stock markets are under pressure. They're all down right now. But I wanted to concentrate on this, and this is about what's going on in Hong Kong. And shame on me for not talking about it because this problem's been going on for about 6 months. And I thought that I would actually, I should start here. What's going on in Hong Kong? What to know about the protests? And I'll link both stories that I'm about to show below. But the etymology of this problem is back in, I believe it's 1997, British gave up control of Hong Kong and basically gave it to China with the understanding that Hong Kong would maintain its own government and have its own constitution and have its own freedoms that are, definitely not in tune with China. And in fact, I was reading in the story here that they had a name for it. It was like one country, two systems. That was what the policy was called. And the problem is that basically there are bills being introduced into Hong Kong right now and its government level that take away these freedoms that are guaranteed until 2047. So these freedoms enjoyed by the people of Hong Kong were supposed to be enjoyed for a significantly longer period of time. And it's starting to be chipped away at with these bills that are passing through their legislator. And the really exciting thing and the promising thing and also the terrifying thing is that the young folks don't want their freedoms taken away. They're actually willing to fight for them. Now, fight is, I know, probably a poorly chosen word here, but they're demonstrating for them. They're protesting so that their rights don't get taken away. The scary part is China is not going to acknowledge their right. They want the government to go forward with stripping them of their freedoms one at a time, which is very similar to what we see happening to us in America. I'll draw the connections, towards the end of this anyway. This is why this is an important story to follow. Is because we have a country that has enjoyed certain freedoms for a long, long time. Because remember now, Hong Kong was under British control for, I think it's 200 years or something like that. It had a major, English influence there. And since, basically it has relinquished control and basically taken away most of their influence. I'm sure there's influence behind the scenes there. But the government in Hong Kong is being infiltrated by those who are sympathetic to the mainland. That's the main issue here. So we're talking about the beginnings of corruption. And what happens when you do this and young people are saying, no, we're not acknowledging this. I mean, we want to keep our freedoms. We like the way things are. We don't want them changed. But the politicians say, yes, they must be changed. We need to take away, freedom of expression. We need to take away, what rights do they have here? They're in here. And they call it basic law. Right to free assembly. Right to unrestricted internet access and free speech. These are the things that they're talking about taking away, literally with legislation. So, at any rate, this is why we have protests in Hong Kong, and it's mainly young folk. And I've got to say for them, good for you. The scary part is China is sympathetic to the legislators in Hong Kong that are sympathetic to China. So here we have the corruption breeding in the system. And now we can get to our other story, and I'll link this down below. But this actually has a history of why this got started, and I did put it in here because I've never covered it before. I should have. I definitely am regretful that I didn't cover this because this has been slowly agitating and actually becoming a bigger issue. Now, what's scary about it is that China's going to just go ahead and take over. They're going to bring in the military, and they have the biggest military in the world when you're talking about body count. No one even comes close. I do believe China actually has a 200 million man standing army, which is interesting because they actually, in the book of Revelation, there is a country that has a 200 million man army. But at any rate, they're about ready to assert their authority over Hong Kong. And that means they're going to start killing these kids that are protesting. Now, I know that some may say, hey, listen, TC, you've taken it too far. They're not going to necessarily kill them. They have lots of alternative means. They have, defense systems, to microwave their skin and to, make their eardrums break, and stuff like that. But I am not 100% sure that China is really interested in creating a bunch of disabled people, dying of cancer, and mooching off the system. I think that, I'm sorry, not mooching off the system. That was a poor choice of words. But needing health care for the rest of their lives because they were using microwave weaponry on them. And then also using high frequencies to damage their hearing, things of that nature. Using rubber bullets. China just doesn't, I remember Tiananmen Square, gang. I remember that. I think they're probably more interested in making a one-time statement that China is taking over, regardless of the date. Remember now, they're supposed to enjoy these freedoms until 2047. And I'm going to read this paragraph here. Or actually, this both. Hong Kong, an international finance hub on China's southern coast, was a British colony until 1997, when it was handed back to China under a policy known as One Country, Two Systems. The policy made Hong Kong part of China, but it also let it keep many liberties denied to citizens on the mainland. Important to understand. So people on the mainland want to move to Hong Kong, right? Because they have more freedom. Well, we can't have that. So, I'm sorry, let me finish reading here. Including free speech, unrestricted internet access, and the right to free assembly. The territory has its own laws, system of government, and police force. Under a mini constitution known as Basic Law, the Basic Law, China promised the system would remain in place until at least 2047. So there you have it. This is it. Basically, there's a lot of. By the way, we can go into speculation, but I think the problem here is that many people are moving from China to Hong Kong to enjoy some of these basic freedoms, and they're writing to their families telling them how awesome the system is in Hong Kong. At least we can surf the internet and see what's going on in the world. We have the right to free speech. We can be critical of China over here in Hong Kong. We can be critical of their style of government. We have the right to free assembly. So we can actually protest the government and the things that we think they're doing wrong. These are basic freedoms that we have in the United States, but they also have them in Hong Kong. So now they're about to lose them, all of them. And this is the response they're getting. Let me read the kind of the takeaway, at the end of this article here. So will China invade Hong Kong and potentially trigger a global war as the West has no choice but to come to... Oh, I'm sorry. Let me enlarge it. I keep forgetting to do that for you guys, and I am sorry. Okay. So will China invade Hong Kong and potentially trigger a global war as the West has no real choice but to come to the wayward territory's defense? Okay. Interesting question. That would drag the United States into this conflict, and it won't be a proxy war. It will not be a proxy war. That would literally be American military going against Chinese military, possibly in Hong Kong. Now, once again, that's wild speculation. That's wild speculation. I'm not even sure that would happen. But we will find out. But recall what Steve, the Big Short Eisman, said last week, who said that his biggest fear right now are that Hong Kong protests, warning that the people who are protesting will not be backing down, and the Chinese government doesn't seem to be backing down. So if cooler heads don't prevail, it's possible things in Hong Kong could get ugly. And adding that, it's actually what I'm worried about the most right now. Because every weekend we've got this drama where the people of Hong Kong are having protests in the millions, and it's starting to get violent. It's because their voices aren't heard. You know, they're going forward with this legislation, and the people have said, hey, this is not what we want. So, representative government promised, I'm sorry, representative government's not promised until 2047. What is promised is those basic freedoms, the basic rights. And those are being taken away, a full 25 years early, 30 years, almost 30 years early. So, what are the Chinese people to do? When we can't, for instance, they're thinking we can't have this anymore. We can't have these freedoms because it's not representative of mainland China, and we can't extend these same freedoms to our own people in mainland China. People are starting to want to move from China to Hong Kong. Young people, are starting to get a taste of this freedom, and they're really liking it. So what are we to do? And I think, unfortunately, this may end up in conflict. Now, and China has been, wanting Taiwan forever too. So Hong Kong and Taiwan are in the crosshairs of China. Hong Kong is much more immediate. I don't think this is going to end well, gang. If these young people are literally willing to fight for their freedoms, they're going to get crushed by the Chinese military. And then China will absorb Hong Kong, and its laws will change immediately. It'll be absorbed as it won't even be territory anymore. It'll just be mainland. And once again, a bastion of some freedoms will have been crushed by, communism. So being crushed under the iron fist of communism has happened before. We've seen that when the Eastern Bloc nations were taken, basically after the Second World War. And even, more recently, Crimea. I mean, a lot of people have, their own opinion about what was going on in Crimea, but that was basically Russia asserting its power over territory. So I wanted to bring this to your attention so at least you're aware of what is actually going on in Hong Kong, and it's probably coming to a head real quick. I don't know when. Like I said, I always say this, I can throw a date on anything, but I'll be wrong, just like everyone else. But I think China's about ready to end this. They don't want these protests anymore. They're absorbing it. They know they're absorbing it. They're tired of the kids protesting. The protesting, unfortunately, is starting to become violent because these kids feel, and I shouldn't say just kids, but these folks in Hong Kong feel their voices are not being heard, and they have freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and they're, once again, that looks like that's going to get taken away because the protests have turned violent, semi-violent. It hasn't been really violent. Okay, but that's what I wanted to convey to you guys. So that way we've kind of covered what's going on in Hong Kong. And I will try my best to keep an eye on this so I can keep you guys up to date on what's going on. But it does look like the Chinese army is starting to mobilize. I don't know if it's mobilizing for training or if it's mobilizing for, actual action. I'm not sure yet, but it looks like it's mobilizing. So we may know something here within a week or two. And if it if it breaks out into something bigger, I will be here to try and cover that the best I can. Okay, gang, that is all I have for now. I just wanted to cover that. I'll probably, in the next day or two, get out some new financial data for you. And I want to thank everyone everyone. I've got a lot of new subscribers, and I'm a small channel, and I represent a larger group of people. Truth, Money, and Freedom. We have a Discord server, and we have a lot of folks in there. And I might be, maybe more vocal than some of them. I'm willing to do, the podcasts and everything. But if you guys are interested in coming in and talking to us, we do have a Discord server, and it's linked down below. And we did a podcast last night from Ellie's grassroots server, so you could join that server as well. A lot of great folk in both servers. I think it's time that we all start talking about these things that are going on, so that if the feces does hit the rotating oscillator, at the very least you'll know what has happened, because we cover a lot of things that are not covered in the mainstream media. On our channels and our Discord servers, do a lot of think tank kind of stuff. We actually debate a lot of this stuff to try and figure out what's actually going on, because we definitely cannot trust the mainstream media. We cannot trust our politicians. They lie to us constantly. In fact, it's almost a full-time job just to sift through politicians' comments to find out what's true and what's not. It's gotten that bad here in America as well. But I just want to let you know that these places are available, and you can find them in the description section below. Signing up for Discord is free. Doesn't cost you anything. And then you can create an account. You can come in and talk to us. You can listen in on conversations if you want. You don't have to talk. It's not a requirement. But at any rate, I just wanted to make sure that, the new folks, and I know a lot of you have been with me forever, already knew about all this, but a lot of new folks may not have known about this. So consider joining our Discord servers. And thank you once again for listening to Truth, Money, and Freedom. Your time is important. I get that. And the fact that you guys drop by to listen to us is very important to us. And let's keep the conversation going. Okay, gang, that's all for now. You guys have a wonderful Monday. Have a wonderful week. I'll get out some more podcasts quickly. You guys take care, and may God bless you all.